Hello and welcome to the first episode of my YouTube channel. So if you're going through an ACL injury yourself, whether you're pre-surgery or post-surgery, then this channel is hopefully going to be for you, where I break down all of common mistakes, the questions that people often have, and give a bit more detail and context. So hopefully help you move forward and get a lot of clarity in your recovery. Now, I've been meaning to do a YouTube channel for a while now. I've got a million excuses as to why I didn't start it, but here I am in front of the camera. Hopefully this will be a good episode to start with. So I'm going to first talk about my own ACL journey. So when it first happened, how it happened, the mistakes are made, the decisions are made, and hopefully you can relate and connect to it. Because even being a physio myself, it doesn't go perfectly. I'm on my second one. So hopefully, like I say, I can give you that insight and share my experience with you. And I think historically the standard of ACL recovery and rehabilitation is pretty poor, particularly for the general population. We know elite athletes get access to the best facilities, the best support systems, and often particularly in the UK where I'm from, the NHS, although it's got great physios in it, the systems in which they work, where you get an appointment every 4-6 weeks, a list of exercises, not much support or guidance, it's not really good enough. And there's a lot of people in the sort of ACL world now that are delivering a better message, and I think the general public are getting more aware of what good actually looks like and start to recognise when their rehabilitation or recovery is not maybe hitting the standards as it should do. So I will hopefully break down some concepts or answer some questions that are commonly asked regarding ACL injuries, to give you a bit more clarity and direction with your recovery, so you can continually make steps forward. So as I say, this episode is going to be about my own journey. And I think my ACL injury situation, it's almost become part of my identity now. For years I was always asked, how's the knee? And I think, bloody hell, I'm more than just my knee. That's mainly from football friends, etc. But in recent years, particularly since I've had the injury and I've gone to specialise in it, working with people with ACL injuries, that's all my day's about. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's not so good. But I've lived and I've breathed it, and I understand some of the challenges that people have, because I work with people that have these challenges. I've had them myself. So I'm going to share a brief overview really of what happened, like I say, the mistakes I made, and give you that insight really into how I think. Because like I say, although I'm a physio, I'm not immune to making mistakes or thinking like you do. I'm just a human being, but I've got that extra bit of knowledge, which is sometimes good, but too much knowledge isn't always a good thing. So if we go back to July 2015, I think it was the 23rd, if I remember off the top of my head. It was a cold, wet, windy night in Stoke. No, it wasn't. It was July the 23rd. It was a blistering hot, sunny day, and we were travelling to Stoke for a football game, pre-season, and I was feeling great. Now, I absolutely love football. It was my life, lived and breathed it. Started jobs around being able to play football, so I could play on Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, Saturday nights. It was my life, and everything I did, whether it was going to the gym, was based on trying to get better at football, more athletic. And I was 24, nearly 25 at the time, so that was about 10 years ago now, or 10 and a half it was. As I say, I absolutely love football, and the game was actually going to get called off, annoyingly in hindsight, and I was gutted. I didn't want the game called off because I'd prepared myself. I was ready to play the football match, and we ended up getting players in that I'd never seen before. We had to recruit them from friends of friends just to play the game. Obviously, you don't want to let the other team down on the day, and it ended up being a right mess. We travelled about an hour down to Stoke, and we had, I think, 13, 14 players. And by the end of the game, I think there was 5 of us that got injured. So it was just a bad day all round. So it was about 10 minutes into the game that I injured my knee. I remember chasing down the full-back, so I think the left-back had the ball. I'd come on the inside to try and get round him. Half managed to get in front of him. And then I think he palmed me off. And as he palmed me off, my foot had planted. And I just remember my knee feeling like it bent out sideways. It's like a hyperextension injury, and I just remember, it sounds dramatic, but I describe it as an explosion in my knee, a massive pop, and I was in so much pain. I was rolling around on the floor, couldn't weight bear, couldn't walk, it was giving way. And I thought I'd done my LCL just because that's where it felt like the injury happened, on the outside of the knee. So I somehow managed to drive home, and the knee swelled up. It was massive, and I was struggling to walk. It was cracking, it was clunking, and I just thought, a bit of time, bit of physio. Being a physio, I could get it better. Anyway, it wasn't feeling right. I remember starting to try and get back into the football. Went to pass it with my left foot, and then I was all of a sudden on the floor, and at that point I thought, I need to get this checked out. So I think I was in denial at the time. I think I had a cash plan through my work where I was able to get a consultation with a consultant at Manchester Spire, so it would have been the old Manchester Spire at the time, and went to the appointment, wasn't really thinking anything of it, and he assessed my knee and said the words, "Your ACL doesn't feel good." And I remember thinking, crap, just that weight on my chest. I just wanted to explode, curl up into a ball, explode, because I just wasn't expecting it. Now, my brother had already done his ACL a year or two before, and it just hadn't crossed my mind. It might have been denial, but I remember driving home crying, thinking, shit, I thought I'd be back in a month or two, and now it's going to be years. It could be years. You don't know at that time, because you don't know how soon you're going to get the surgery. If you're a professional athlete, you tend to get it within maybe a week or two. Someone in the general population, I didn't have private medical insurance, I had the cash plan. Thought, am I going to need to get it through the NHS? Fortunately, I was able to refer myself back as an NHS patient to the Manchester Spire. That really helped speed things up. And the way my surgeon works is he did the surgery in 2 stages. So I would repair the meniscus first, if that was torn. Thankfully it wasn't, so we did an arthroscopy in the October, and then I had to get full hyperextension and sit back on my heels before I had the ACL reconstruction. And that took me from September. So it was from September, sorry, when he first said you need to be able to sit back on your heels, because at that time I was quite passive with getting my movement back. I didn't really understand. I wasn't that experienced as physio at the time. And then from that point, I was just religiously working at trying to get my range of motion back. And I managed to get my hyperextension back within a week, and then my flexion took about three months. So it was in January that I saw him that I was finally able to sit back on my heels, and he listed me for surgery in March 2016. So yeah, so we scheduled the surgery. I think it was March the 6th I had the surgery. We had a patellograft the first time. My surgeon did that graft because he said it fully regenerates. So I was happy with that. I know a lot of elite footballers, professionals tend to have patellografts. And I remember waking up from the day of the surgery, and the pain was horrific, 10 out of 10 pain. But I was glad it was done, and I was quite focused, and I was confident that once I had the surgery, I could just crack on with the rehab and focus on getting back to sport. And I had a lot of confidence in the surgery. I thought, well, he's done the surgery. Once it heals, the graft is now stable. My knee's stable. I just need to get confident getting back to playing football. Now, one of the problems is on the surgeon's website, he had an accelerated ACL rehabilitation plan. Now, I don't even know what that means. I just took it as a time-based progression where elites can get back to sport in 6 months, and I took that as I can get back in 6 months. So that was my goal, and rehab was going well. I was progressing through the stages, everything that I was doing. Every time I went to see the physio at the hospital, try new things, it was okay. I was responding well, but I didn't have any measuring or testing. I just went off how it felt, and things were feeling good. And then it was around the September, I think, maybe even the August, end of August, that I returned to football. And part of that was the external pressure. People at football don't understand rehabilitation, and because I was back training and running and looking like I was moving well, they were saying, well, why don't you come back, at least just playing in a friendly. And they were also short on strikers, so there was kind of that pressure that we needed to get back. And most of the season is played at the start of the season in August, September, October. So I would have missed, I think I was working out like 30% of the season just in those 3 months, because you play 2 games a week. There's FA Cup games. Really wanted to play in the FA Cup. So there was a lot of pressure externally on myself to try and get back and get involved. And after a few games, I was doing well. I scored a hat-trick in the September. I was feeling fast, I was feeling sharp. But I think with the accumulation of the games, I ended up getting patella tendonitis. And I just played through that for about 2 months, up to the point where I was like, I need to do something about this. I need to stop. This isn't good for me. So in the November, stopped playing football again. Had 3 months off building up the tendon. So that was essentially an extra 3 months of rehabilitation. Made sure I was feeling good. Got back in, I think it was the February, March time that I managed to make it back. Again, playing well, back scoring goals because I was a striker, and then had another injury in, I think it was April. It was on the Easter weekend. Dislocated my elbow. Obviously nothing to do with my knee, but I just became so injury prone at the time. It was mad. A lot of it was bad luck. I mean, you can't account for dislocating your elbow. So my season was over at that point. Probably a good thing again, just allowed me to focus on getting myself fitter, stronger. Next pre-season came and I felt great. I scored 15 goals in pre-season. Looking forward to starting the season again. We played on Saturdays and Mondays because it was, as much as I hate Manchester City, being a United fan, it was Manchester City supporters club that I played for. Most of us were United fans, but it was a good club, good people there, even though they were City fans. So they moved their weekday games to Monday nights because they were then starting to play Champions League football in Europe, and we could get a bigger crowd. So we played in the FA Cup in the August. I think it was the second, third game of the season. Equalised in the 90th minute. Had a replay on the Monday, so 2 days later. And I remember the game. It was actually the last football game I played. The goalkeeper was just, he had an off day. He was kicking the ball out of play every time he kicked it. Every time. And then it was about the 84th minute. He finally managed to keep a ball in play. And I jumped up to control it. Brought it down with my right foot. And as I landed, I just felt my knee go into a place it shouldn't. And I just knew that I'd torn my ACL again. So it just felt like a stretch. There was no pop. There wasn't too much pain. But you just know. I tried jogging. I was like, my knee just doesn't feel right. And then the next day it swelled up, and I thought, I've got to go and get this checked again. I can't believe I've just done my ACL again. Went to see the same consultant. We got another scan. About 70% of the fibres were torn. He did an arthroscopy because my knee was catching at the time. Every time I extended my knee, I was getting like a clunk, and it was the torn fibres of the ACL were catching in the joint. So ACL stump impingement, had to get that debrided and trimmed down. He said that the knee was fairly stable under anaesthetic, so he did a pivot shift test. The knee didn't clunk or dislocate fully. Essentially, that's what they're trying to do, get that shift in the tibia. He graded it he marked it as a grade 2. And we had a discussion about redoing the surgery. He said I might be able to get away with managing it conservatively, and I just thought there's no way I can go through this again. I've just been through 12 months of constant injury, constant rehab. I think I'd rather stop playing football, or at least just try without, if the knee is stable. So it took me till April of next year to get that arthroscopy. I can't remember what the delays were for. So I spent April to June, July, August. I was doing the rehab, I was building the strength back up again. I wasn't measuring or testing anything. I was starting to do change of direction, all felt good. And then the first training session back, it was on my birthday in August. At the end of the session, just went to pass inside, and then the last fibres just popped. It was quite innocuous, really. Pass it with my left foot, and my right knee hyperextended, and that was the last time. I just knew then that was it. My football career is over, and it worked out okay. I think in the back of my head I probably built myself up to it, and then once you make that decision that's it, I need to give up, I found peace in doing other things, like eventually hiking, cycling, walking, just training for general health and fitness. Now, football was literally my life, and when I look back, it was such a stress having to drive around to Liverpool or Stoke on a weekday after work. It was just, I didn't miss that side of things, but I did miss the football. But you get to a point where you kind of, it's acceptance, really. I was happy to stop and just not go through that process again. And I was absolutely fine. Took myself away from football. And then I think it was in probably 22 or 23, I was in the gym doing a reverse lunge. I've had no issues up to this point. No pain, no giving way. Step back, put too much weight through the back leg, I think, so it was like a loaded pivot shift test. And my right leg just dropped to the floor like a sack of shit, and I had this bar on my back, and it was quite a busy gym. It was quite embarrassing at the time. I don't know if anyone saw. Nobody came up to me to help, but I managed to get the bar off my shoulders. Wasn't in much pain. I didn't really have much pain after it. Swelled a little bit with a little bit of discomfort, but there wasn't any of that compression force going through the knee with the mechanism. So it was just a bit of a shock to the system, really. Again, I wasn't too worried. I knew I had an unstable knee, and just carried on. And then it was in May 2024, I was starting to do a lot more dynamic activity, doing some jumps in the gym. I don't know why I tried this jump, but I essentially jumped from a right leg to my right leg, a lateral jump. I think I went too horizontally, and as I landed, just absolutely butchered my knee, and it gave way. And I remember lying on the floor. Kim, my partner, was there. She was like, "Are you okay?" She saw me fall, and I was like, "No, I've just literally butchered my knee." And I tried to stand up, and it was like a knife going through the front. I thought I'd done some pretty bad damage. I thought I've clearly injured my meniscus. Decided a week later that because I couldn't walk, I'll go to the doctors. I want to potentially explore whether I need this knee stabilising, because this has been twice now, and as I'm starting to do more dynamic activity, I want the confidence to be able to do that, to jump, to potentially run again, change direction, and start to get an itch for doing that. So I had a consultation in August 24 with the consultant. Managed to get myself referred back to Manchester Spire with a different consultant though this time. Had a conversation, and I was just ready to go through the process again mentally. It had been, I think, 7-8 years since I last had it. I wanted a stable knee, and I wanted the option of doing more, which I didn't really have that itch or urge before. I wanted it to be my choice if I said no to stuff, because I'd go on holiday and I'd see people playing tennis or other sports, and I wouldn't have the confidence to do that. Whereas, like, well, if I had a stable knee, I could potentially just go and have a recreational game of tennis, or paddle is this new sport. I've not tried that yet. Maybe I will at some point. I wanted the option of doing that if the opportunity came about. Whereas with the knee how it was, I would never be confident because I'd be scared of it giving way. So I decided that, yeah, it's worth having an ACL reconstruction. If I ever have a family in the future, kids, and I want to play sport with them, I wouldn't have the confidence to do it. So now is the best time. So we planned the surgery. It's a 2-stage surgery. So the first time you have, or the first time I had it, because it was a patella graft, they have to drill bigger holes for the tunnels to feed the ligament through. So with the revision, because the hamstring graft is a bit thinner, the holes are essentially too big to fixate it. So it's a 2-part surgery where they fill the holes with bone graft, let that set for 5-6 months, and then redo the reconstruction. So I had that in November 24, the first stage, packed the bone, let that set, and then redid the surgery in July 25 with a hamstring graft. Thankfully, my meniscus had healed itself twice, so I never needed a meniscus repair with that initial surgery. My knee did give way again in April 25. I was doing some filming for some content on field. I've got that videoed. So if you're interested, I can send you a video of that. It's on Instagram, where my knee gave way trying to change direction. You can hear it. So at that point, I was actually debating, do I really need the reconstruction because I'm feeling good? And that clarified that once I started doing more dynamic movement again, my knee gave way. So I'm clearly somebody that can't cope with an ACL, whereas other people can cope better. There is some research that suggests people can cope and some can't. So I don't know why I can't cope, whether it's my bony makeup and genetics, etc., whether that plays a part potentially. So I had the surgery in July with a hamstring graft, no meniscus repair, had an LET where they add extra stability on the outside of the knee. And as I'm recording this in April 2026, I'm now 8 months post-surgery. Had a little setback recently, tore my hamstring. And I'm at the point where things are improving, the knee's stable, but it's tough going in terms of regaining hamstring strength, getting the confidence in the knee, the ache and the stiffness that is fairly constant, that is settling down a lot now, which is good. But it's a long journey. I knew that. I'd prepared myself for it, having had it before, having worked with people with ACL injuries. You know that these symptoms last a long time. So that's essentially the story, the reasons why I made the decision to have another reconstruction. As you can see, it's not a one size fits all approach. It's not a yes or no answer. There's normally different factors that play a role. My circumstances changed from 2017 when I injured it again to 2024 where I gave way a second time, and I wanted to do that more dynamic activity. So hopefully my story gave you a better understanding. Maybe you can relate to it. If you've got any questions, then drop them in the comments, or you can reach out to me at rickwilliams_ACL coach. I'd be happy to chat, always happy to speak to people. And if you are struggling with an ACL injury and you want proper support, proper guidance, then that's essentially what I've created my business around, making sure people get good care. Obviously, again, drop me a message, be happy to chat and see if it's something I can help you with. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.